Well, we are the good doctors of Abbey Research, as ever, Dr. Aaron.
Dr. Kristen.
And we're here with one of our another celebratory month video series.
Because there are still things to celebrate in 2020.
Even in 2020, we've decided we will continue celebrating. So we've done things like Black History Month, Indigenous History Month, Pride, you name it, for all the reasons we have said before, the importance of highlighting different identities and cultures and stories. We like to do it by talking about art, usually film and television. If you're on our YouTube channel, you know this already. Thus, all the examples you can see. So for those of you that don't know, Hispanic Heritage Month started as a week by President LBJ, became a month by President Ronald Reagan, in order to encompass a lot of Independence Day celebrations in various parts of Central and South America. And so the month recognizes the contributions and histories and cultures of Americans that come from Spain, the Caribbean, Mexico, South America, Central America. So for the next 4 weeks, we're going to be highlighting 2 films and 2 documentary comedy specials with the hopes of having some really cool discussions about all the things that could possibly fit under the huge umbrella that is Hispanic. But we're going to talk first about the 2002 movie Real Women Have Curves, which deals specifically with Mexican-American immigrant family in East Los Angeles at the time when Dr. Kristen and I were both seniors in high school. So flashback city.
I felt attacked by her accessory choices.
I was like, every time I was like, you went to Claire's.
Those pants are from Old Navy.
I was wondering how many of like my problems that I see a chiropractor for are because I spent 4 years of high school with all of my books on one
shoulder. And then instead of carrying a purse, I carried a backpack, my JanSport backpack, as a purse.
I had overalls.
Oh, I had overalls. My boobs were too big for overalls to me. Like, so, yeah, I mean, the body image issues in this is why I watched it the first time, like in 2008, 2009, like after America Ferrera got a lot more famous after playing Ugly Betty.
Yeah.
This movie was recommended to me by good old Netflix. And I watched it then, and it was, at that time when I watched it, the very first time I saw anybody whose body looked anything like mine on a screen. And so instantly fell in love with the movie for that reason. But now, like 12 years later, it's different and yet more resonant. Like I would still love it. I really wish somebody would revive this and do it as a play. I would really love to see this as a play.
Yes, it is based on a play, and it makes sense. It felt kind of like watching a play, I think, with really intentional sets.
Yeah, because all of the scenes are intimate.
Yeah, and they're all in like just a handful of places.
Yeah.
Really. And so it felt kind of like that. And for me, like it was a really, and I said this offline before we started filming, like a beautifully simple way to tell a very complicated story. It is on its face a coming of age story, a relatively simple plot of a young woman from a Mexican American family struggling with all the things that young women struggle with: culture, identity, gender, life choices, dreams, family.
The summer after her senior year of high school, like the summer in between high school and college. Yeah.
Going like all of those things, but it hits all of those very complicated points in a really simple and empathetic way. And particularly, we were both struck by the presentation of women in this movie as well.
The culminating scene that like is the one that I think probably is what gets the title from, is that one of the tiny through lines of the whole movie is that the factory in which our main protagonist, her mother and her sister work, is really hot.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been complaining about this all movie. I keep wanting to say episode. It's not an episode. All movie. But they can't turn the fan on because then it would blow dust in the dresses and blah, 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 blah. And so finally, our main character, America Ferrera's character, Anna, just takes off her shirt because it's hot. And all the women in there start comparing bodies, as we are all wont to do, and talking about, well, you think those are stretch marks? Look at my stretch marks. You think you're fat? Well, then I'm an elephant. Like, and kind of understanding that one of the main things that women do is that we are programmed to compete with each other in terms of beauty, accessibility. And so that's, you know, a very, very cultural thing of just worldwide in nearly every culture. And so we have to compete for who is either suffering the most and therefore maligned the most, or who is the most prized, the skinniest, the whatever. And
yeah, and I think that scene is so wonderful too, because it shows that, like, no matter what your body size is, you've internalized body image issues or shame around what you perceive to be good or bad about your.
Yeah. And as somebody growing up, when I was Anna's age, I was furious when people smaller than me would talk about how fat they were, because all I could hear that as was them calling me even more fat, and they weren't brave enough to say it to my face. And I know now that that's not what they were saying, that's not probably what they were thinking. But when I was 18, that was very little made me see red faster than that. And so the thing is also at the end, that scene concludes with Anna saying, this is us, we're real women. Mm-hmm. And that's what this whole movie is about. There is not necessarily a happy ending in all of the relationships. Things are still complicated and messy. There's still the older sister who, it doesn't matter how much she loves her baby sister, she has a factory to run and she can't leave it to make her baby sister feel better. Mm-hmm. Their mom is a really complicated woman full of dreams for her daughters, but only very specific dreams. And a lot of bitterness that she worked as hard as she has for as long as she has, and her body is betraying her mm-hmm. because of that. It touches on class issues and pride of work. It touches on what is the definition of a sweatshop and why teenagers throw around that word because they're dramatic. And it touches upon a lot of these. This is not either one of our cultures. We are not Latinx. This is not what it looks like. But there are versions of a lot of those conversations in both of our home cultures. Uh-huh. And so they sounded familiar. They felt familiar in some ways, and yet totally foreign in some others, in a really intimate way that we were able to inhabit this family for an hour and a half, and not make it feel voyeuristic, and instead make it feel empathetic.
Yeah, and I think so many times you can tell a story like this, and you know, romanticize the realities of a low-income immigrant neighborhood, or, you know, make it poverty porn in a way that's done disrespectfully, or that caricatures or stereotypes, you know, members of certain immigrant communities or certain classes. And this was just life. This is what life looks like. And it was done being honest, but not being derogatory. And clearly from the perspective of the playwright, I don't know anything about her, but I'm assuming this is something very similar to her story, or she knows this story very well, because it was clear from the perspective of who was telling the story. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things we talk about a lot when we do these month-long celebrations mm-hmm. and recognitions, is the importance of having authentic voices yep. tell the stories and experiences of these different groups, especially if they're considered marginalized groups within the United States. And so, you know, the difference between having a white man tell the story versus a brown woman, and the level of experience and authenticity that is brought to that, makes it so much more easy to identify with a very specific story that has a lot of universality in it.
Yeah. So obviously we recommend this movie. We'll admit it's a hard find. We got it on HBO Signature. I had to record it at 3:00 in the morning on a Saturday. Yeah. I believe you can buy it on Amazon if you do not have HBO Signature and Insomnia. But we would say it's worth it. I think it's a great little coming of age story. If you are somebody with teenagers that are maybe looking for stories of other teenagers, this is a good one. Also really fun to tell them that you used to be able to go to the gate on 9/11 before 9/11 to send people off at the airport. It's a time capsule, guys. This movie is a time capsule. Even at the very end, when America Ferrera walks out into New York City, she's wearing one of those dumb little chokers we all wore.
Oh my god!
And
over the strap purses over the side purses.
And then there's also we had a real deep fear of shirts being too long. And so every shirt hit the very top of your trousers as though we had to prove our pants were buttoned or something. It was I hated those shirts. I was so glad when they disappeared. And everything had a baby doll sleeve.
Oh, so many baby doll sleeves. And her boyfriend for the summer, who is adorably late 90s in all of his appearance.
Yep.
And his MacBook laptop. Those things weighed 10 pounds. That was my first laptop when I went to uni, and it had
they had their own handle,
the handle built in.
And then his Volvo, his car, I could feel the gear shift in my thighs, from all the nights of, oh my God.
Yeah. So for those of you of a particular age, it might be nostalgia or nostalgic to watch it. But yeah, it's certainly worth it. If you liked Jane the Virgin or watched Jane the Virgin, it's a kind of a precursor to that. And you'd recognize a lot of the cultural similarities in how the story is told and what life looks like for those people. But yeah, highly recommended. Join us next week. We'll be talking about a couple documentaries this month, and we're also going to look at Disney's smash success Coco as well, for all different kinds of representations of anything that could possibly be Hispanic.